Okay, hi everyone. My name is Shazia Khan, and we are doing the unit on academic writing skills, and we are doing learning outcome 2 today, which is to produce a written response in an appropriate format. So in the last session, we looked at learning outcome 1, okay, and we looked at what is academic writing. We also looked at the importance of academic writing. Can you give me an example of why academic writing is important?
It helps us to write proper
Okay.
document, proper what do you call it, writing.
Any examples of academic writing, things like assignments?
Assignments, assignment, or any work or any interviews we attend, and how we gonna attend answer the questions according to the
that was things like we looked at open-ended question and close-ended questions. So close-ended questions are things like yes or no.
Yes or
and
no.
Then open-ended questions are things like, if we ask you why you want the job, describe why you want the job. They're open-ended they're open-ended questions. So we went through the issue in regards to when you would use closed questions and when you would use open questions. And they are there to provide the researcher with more information.
Right.
And we looked at the different types of questions, that examples of question. Also, we looked at the different in the learning outcome 1, which was the last session. We looked at the keywords, command words, and we why there's a need. If you get a question in an assignment, why is it important to break that question down? Why do you think, Boniface, why do you think it's so important to break the question down?
That is to make the question, the answer easier.
Yes, excellent. So it's for you to make the answer easier, for you to be able to identify what the key words are. So if you're able to answer a specific question, you're able to break it down and answer it easily. Then we looked at the Harvard referencing, and we looked at the Harvard referencing generator. We looked at Neil's toolbox, and how that formats and generates a book, a journal, an internet resource, anything in regards to referencing and paraphrasing, and the importance of this in regards to plagiarism or any sort of issues of cheating. So if you do any work, you must make sure it's referenced, because it's not your work, it's someone else's work. So throughout UK Varsity, you need to be using the Harvard referencing on system. Okay. So now we're going to look at learning outcome 2, which is to produce a written response in regards to in an appropriate format. Okay. So the indicative context. So we're planning a written response. We're going to consider the question and the conclusion that's required. We're going to write down 3 or 4 key points that support that argument, because it's important that we identify key points. For each point, we're going to identify, we must identify 1 or 2 examples from the research to support the point. We must note words or phrases that will be useful at each stage, and we will note the sources used so that they can be acknowledged. We need to write a coherent and logical response. Once the plan is in place and the requirements of the questions have been analysed, the learner should ensure there is a strong introduction which sets out what will be covered. Begin to structure the key points in a logical way. Why is it important to have this structure at the start?
It's important to have the structure at the start.
Yeah, if you're doing an assignment or an exam paper or anything, why is it important to have a written, coherent and logical structure at the start?
I think that the structure is going to put you into a proper place to write the essay.
Yeah. So, you know, you need to have an introduction. And what do you think, why do you think it's important to have an introduction?
Introduction gives you the outline of the whole thing.
Yeah, it gives you an outline of what you will be doing in a logical and a coherent manner. So, you know, the person who's reading it is able to understand what your intentions are.
Yes.
Okay, so you need to ensure that each point furthers the argument or discussion. You need to end with a conclusion that sums up what has been discussed and answers the question. Again, when we look at a conclusion, why do you think a conclusion is so important?
Conclusion is give you the preview of the introduction.
Sorry, what is that?
It gives you I think the preview of the introduction, how you started the whole thing and how you end.
Conclusion comes at the end.
Yeah.
When you've done the assignment, it will come at the end. So what is it putting together? Is it getting everything together?
Pardon?
So it's summarizing everything from the end.
Yeah, summarizing everything from the end. Yeah. A brief summary of the whole essay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then we use a format appropriate to the subject. So learners should be able to select the best format for the topic based on the intended audience and the purposes.
Right.
For example, to inform, explain, etc. This may be an essay, an investigation, an art or photographic collection, or a video.
Okay, right.
So we're going to watch a video now, and this video is on the YouTube, and it's on the 5 C's of effective communication.
5 C's, okay. 5 C's, okay. Right.
So tell me if you can hear this as well, okay?
Okay.
Can you hear it?
No. I see it, but I can't hear it.
Okay, 1 minute. Let's
Right.
go back. I think we share it like that, and then can you hear it now?
Yeah, I hear it now.
Okay, so let's go back then.
5 C's of effective business writing. Have you ever heard of the 5 C's? Tailor your writing. Use the 5 C's. The 5 C's are a useful tool to evaluate your writing to ensure that it is an effective piece of communication. Use these 5 C's to check your writing. Is your message correct, clear, complete, concise, courteous? Correct. Ensure your language and content are correct. Check your spelling, grammar, facts, and data. Clear. Readers must understand your writing easily. Check your wording, flow, tone, punctuation, and sentence structure. Complete. Be sure to include everything your reader needs to know. Your document shouldn't leave your reader up to their own assumptions. Concise. Say what you need to say in the shortest but most effective way possible. Courteous. Treat your reader with respect. See your message from the reader's point of view. Use positive language and always check your tone. When writing, always ask, is my writing correct, clear, concise, complete, courteous? Good luck!
So this is just a short video on explaining the 5 C's of business, okay? Why do you think it's so Can you see these slides now, Boniface? Yeah.
Yeah, 5 C's. Yeah.
So why do you think it's so important to have your work or your in a business, your letters and things like that? Why do they need to be clear, complete, concise, courteous, and correct?
But I think it makes your writing so readable, and then it helps those readers to
Yeah, it
understand what
helps the
you are trying
readers.
to.
Okay, so when we looked at the 5 C's, number 1 is clear. So you
Yeah.
needed to make sure your purpose and intent is clear to the reader. So the
Right.
person reading it is able to understand what you are portraying to them and sending them. So if there's any work that you've got to your reader, you need to make sure your purpose, and why do you need to make sure it's clear?
That is the reader understands what you are trying to say or write.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That your intention is clear, and so that the reader understands. What about that number 2, whether it should be complete? What does that mean?
Complete.
Yeah.
I think putting the full stops and the question marks in place so that
Yeah,
the reader
and having and having all the necessary information there. It should be complete. And then it should be concise. So that means that it should include all the necessary and relevant information again.
Okay.
And then courteous. So you should address the reader politely, and then correct. You should unscramble the sentence. So it should be correct. It should make sense. And it is important. These actually work well for businesses and also for in education, where, you know, you have to make the reader understand what you are doing.
Right. Yeah.
And then we've got to the next one is looking at the 7 C's of communication. And again, these are really important in regards to the communication checklist. So why is it important to have the 7 C's? Why is communication so important, firstly, in a business?
So you make the objective clear.
Why do you think it's so important in any business? Communication, effective communication in any business is the backbone of any successful business organization. However, communication is just not about what you say, it's about how you say it. That's why the 7 C's of communication come in. That's why there's a need for the 7 C's. The 7 C's of communication are a set of principles that can help ensure your message are clear, concise, and effective. So the 7 C's is to ensure is a checklist. Okay, so this is a checklist to ensure your communication is effective. Communicate with people every day. So, you know, it's important that we communicate with people every day, both at work and in our personal life. We communicate using the different methods of communication. So what kind of methods of communication do we have? How can we communicate to someone? I think someone else has come up. Martina? Explain, yes?
Your objectives clearly to the
So, but how would we communicate? What are the different methods of communicating? So we can communicate to someone by email. What else?
Messages, text messages.
Messages, yes. What else, Martina? Have you got any examples? I think there's other people. Has anyone got any examples how we communicate to each other?
So sometimes on Facebook.
Facebook, yes. Social media, yeah. What else? Yeah. What about if you're in a meeting? How do you communicate in a meeting?
Verbally.
Verbally, yes.
Yeah.
What about if you're presenting a PowerPoint slides? Is that a way of communication?
Yeah, it's also the way of
Yes.
communication.
And,
Yes.
you know, we've got telephone, email, we've got communication by face-to-face, we've got meetings, reports, these, and like you mentioned, you know, a messaging is another form of communication. And that is so important for a business to be able to communicate with its staff and its workers. In order to ensure that you get the right result when you communicate, you need to ensure your communication is effective and clear. And this is where the 7 C's can help you. So the 7 C's is a checklist where you'd use in regards to how you would communicate. So firstly, the first one is that it must be clear. Why do you think it's important to everything should be clear?
That is, the reader understands you.
Yeah.
You
The reader
understand your point.
understands you.
Yeah.
So like it says in that table, it must make objective clear, avoid complex words and phrases. Why do you think you should avoid complex words and phrases?
If your phrases are complex, it becomes difficult for the reader to understand.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
And not everybody understands that. Okay, not everybody understands complex words.
Yes, please. Yes.
Okay, so the first one is clear. So clarity is ensuring that you're saying it's communicated clearly and no room for misunderstanding. So good advice for being clear includes use simple language and focus on core points of your message. Don't use idioms to prevent any confusion or ambiguity. And be clear in your mind about what you want to say and its purpose before you say it. Okay. The next one is conscious. And that's one of the 7 C's. Keep it clear and to the point. Avoid filler words and sentences. So here you convey your points in a concise way. So short sentences are more likely to keep the person who's listening to you, keep him interested. Okay, so try to use little words as possible to communicate your message.
Right.
Why do you think it's important to use little words, shorter sentences and things? I've got someone who's a Zoom user. What's your name? It just says Zoom user.
Is that me?
Oh, hi, you okay? Yeah, it just says Zoom user. Why do you think it's so important to use shorter sentences and make it concise? When you get a text message from someone, it says hi, and then it identifies how are you. It might say HRU, or, you know, it abbreviates stuff. Why do you think it's clear to, you know, sometimes for the reader to read short messages? Is it easier?
Yeah, it makes it easier.
It makes it easier, doesn't it? Yeah, it makes it easier, but it also identifies that, you know, people are trying to get the message across to you and make it clear. Okay. The next one on the 7 C's is concrete. And that is to be specific, not vague. So use facts and figures to support your message. So concrete message is precise and backed up by confidence, as well as the use of supporting facts and figures. Again, when we look at it and identify why it's important to use facts and figures. Claude, why is it important to use facts and figures? I think Claude.
Yes, sorry, I was in mute.
No, it's okay. Why do you think it's so important to be one of the 7 C's is correctness? Okay, correct. Why is it important to, when you look at a graph or a pie chart or something, why is it important to support your message with numbers?
Yeah, it should be to be clear.
Yeah,
Just
to be clear.
Yes.
And also, if you're saying 10% of the business is in food and we are not doing well. 90% is in clothes and we are doing well. You're able to support your work with figures and you know, bar graphs and pie charts to say, look, we need to move into the food industry more because 90% is where the clothing is doing well. So, you know, facts and figures do, you know, play a big part and also help you explain.
Yeah, is to get
Then
more explanation. Yeah.
Yeah, more explanation, yes. Then we've got this, the next bit of it, the 7 C's is correct. You should use more suitable language for your specific message and the best form of communication. So correctness also means keeping your language free of mistakes, whether there's grammatical, spelling, or any inaccuracy. Why is it important? Why is the language so important? Why do you need to make sure that you are writing a piece of work that's not got any grammatical errors or any sort of issues in regards to spelling or anything like that? Why do you think that's so important?
Are you asking me?
Anyone, Claude?
No.
Yeah. Why do you think it's so? Yeah. Why do you think it's so important to not have grammar issues in your work?
I think it's makes all the correction, proper corrections to your grammar.
Yeah.
Your intentions.
Does it if you, Boniface, if you send a piece of work to me and that piece of work is full of grammatical errors and spelling mistakes, is it a professional academic piece of work?
No.
No. Yeah.
So why is it so important that you check your grammar, you check any inaccuracies, you check the structure? Why is it so important?
It makes the reader of your points and intentions understandable. You understand what you are trying, your intention, what you are trying to say, what you are trying to communicate to the readers. It makes it simple and clear.
Yeah, so it's simple and clear, and you know, it's a professional piece of work. So you know, when you're sending someone some work out, you need to check your grammar. You can't. Some people write like they talk, and you can't write like you talk. You need to write in a professional manner. Okay, I have students that talk to me, and I'll give you an example. Sometimes they say, "Oh, hi, Missy," you know, Miss, hi, Missy. And they'll write that in the assignment, and you don't write things like that. You need to be more professional. It needs to make sense. You need to make sure that the information you provide is accurate. There's no errors in it. And also, you know, grammar is a big thing. People, when you do text messages, you abbreviate in text messages to make it shorter. You can't do that in your assignments. Okay? So messages that are portrayed to you via text messages, they can be abbreviated, but when you're doing assignments, there needs to be a structure and flow. The next one in the 7 C's is that it's coherent. So does the message make sense? Ensure it flows logically and avoid covering too much. Coherent conversation makes sense and flows logically. Think carefully about the order of your points and how you can make it come across in easy for the person to understand. It's very important to be consistent with the style and content with delivering different messages across. So it needs to make sense. The reader is able to read it and you're not covering too much, and it's important. So that's coherent. The next one of the 7 C's is communication, complete. So does the message have everything in it? You know, has the person being able to understand and put all the details of the message in it? So it needs to make sure nothing is missing. It has to be complete. Complete communication ensures that the audience has all the information they need and are able to easily come to a desired conclusion. Good ways to complete include providing a call to action. So what you would like your audience to do after receiving the message, including hyperlinks in written content to ensure all information is provided. Why is it important to make sure your whole message is complete? Why do you think that's so important? So like we said, it needs to have everything in, and it needs to ensure that if you're trying to do something, or if you're trying to sell something, it needs to make that sure that the audience has all the information there. Okay, why is that so important that the information is portrayed to the audience?
I think
What do you think?
it makes the audience understands you, your objectives and your intentions. Yeah, fully.
Yeah, it also, like we said, it also you know, comes to a desired conclusion. So if all the information is there, if there's any sort of questions that the audience need to ask, so to get more understanding, they're able to ask them questions because all the information is there. The next one is courteous. So here you need to be polite, builds goodwill, ensures message is tactful. It's important to be polite and respectful of your audience. Being friendly, considerate, and professional will make your communication much more effective. You should also be transparent, open, and honest, and be happy to answer any sort of questions. Why do you think courteous is so important? Why do you think you should be able to be courteous to anyone's, you know, you should be open, you should be transparent, you should be able to communicate effectively? Why do you think that's very important, to be friendly, considerate? Why do you think that's so important?
I think it makes your point clear to the
Yeah, it makes your point clear.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when we look at the 7 C's, do you think, when we look at these 7 C's, do you think there's an importance of using these 7 C's?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Why do you think it's so important?
That is, it makes your points so clear to the audience or to the reader.
Yeah, it's clear to the reader, you know, and it's easy for them to understand. So, you know, the 7 C's are essential for any business, any organization, for effective communication. That's the whole point of these 7 C's and the 5 C's. They provide a framework for delivering messages that are clear, concise, complete, correct, coherent, considerate, and are concrete. So these provide information and provide effective communication. So it's really important to be able to, you know, put all the information in it, avoid any sort of errors, make sure it's professional, so you're able to introduce everything in regards to that. So 2.1, devise a detailed plan for a written response to a specific question. When you have been given a question to answer, often the most difficult task out is how to get started. That's sometimes, you know, when you're starting an assignment, it's the most hardest part. And when I speak to my students, sometimes I understand what they're saying. I just need to sit down, Shaz. They say to me, I just need to sit down and I need to start it. That is the hardest bit. Why do you think it's hard to start? Sometimes it's difficult for people to get ideas in their heads and how to start. Once they've started, then they can carry on well and do more. However, this is precisely the time at which the best place to create a plan for your answer. It's really, really important to plan your answer. Why do you think it's so important that we should plan our answers? So if we're doing an assignment or we're doing a message, why do you think it's important to plan everything?
I think planning helps you to schedule your writing or your assignments.
So do you think, like when you're planning something, okay, just in an example, in a personal perspective, if I'm planning a wedding, okay, and
Yeah.
I don't plan the wedding accordingly, do you think everything's going to go right?
No, it's not going to.
Oh.
You know.
I'm sure if some of you are married and you haven't planned your wedding properly, your wife will, obviously be unhappy about that. So
Yeah.
planning is really, really important. You need to
Also, yeah.
plan the venue, you need to plan the guest list, you need to plan the date of the wedding. This is so, so important. And that's the same when you are planning to answer a question or response to a specific question, because you need to make sure you bring in the 7 C's, that you're doing everything concisely, you're correct, you're courteous, you're able to complete everything. So these are just, it's something that's so important. So we have already gone over to interpret the instructions for answering a question and meaning of a question. We now need to turn that into a plan. So during the planning stage, you need to keep a number of key concepts in mind. These are the conventions of academic writing, which are the 5 C's. So you need to look at cohesion. So you need to look at your answer should easily move from one paragraph or concept to the next. There needs to be clarity. So the answer should be written in clear English, so clear language.
Yes.
There must be consistency, that the answer should be written in the same style throughout. So in not form or in a prose form, but not both. And then consciousness, the language used should convey. I'm just going back to consistency. So sometimes your style of writing is that it's an essay style, okay? And then all of a sudden you go to note form. That doesn't make sense. It needs to be in one style all the way through. So you need to look at, for example, avoid using bullet points. Let the assignment flow, okay? Avoid using, numbers in it, and then using making the assignment flow as an academic one. So you need to make sure you're able to, use the same style throughout your essay. Consciousness, so the language used should convey the meaning in as few words used as possible. Completeness, so include all information in your answer, and the answer should follow a logical pattern and provide a logical argument. So planning. Most academic answers will require the following components: an introduction, the main body, and a conclusion. Subject differs in the way which essays are developed and arguments are constructed. However, the information below is likely to be useful to everyone. So the introduction here, this is really important. You specifically address the question, explain the argument you are presenting on how you have interpreted the question, and then you have the main body, and this is the core of it. This is where all the information comes. The main body here, you will describe, define, and develop your argument or a set of ideas. This section will be made up of several paragraphs. You will need to plan the theme of each paragraph carefully and make sure you present your answer in a logical order. So this is the core of it, main body. And then conclusion. Here, you will summarize the main points and explain how the arguments and evidence answer the question. Why do you think it's important to have an introduction and a conclusion? Why do you think it's so important to have an introduction and conclusion?
Yeah, it's important because of you can't go on development or body of work without introduction, and you can't finish by body without conclusion. So it makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. So the reader knows that what you are introducing at the start, what you intend to do, and then at the end of it, that you summarize the main points and your arguments. So it's important that the reader knows this.
Yeah.
Okay. So spidergrams. So spidergram is an alternative way of planning. It's an answer is using a spidergram. So you put the question in the middle, and then you have different ideas. And this is a good way of learning. Some people use through spidergrams. Martina, she's got a hand up. Martina? I think you've got your hand up. Do you want to ask anything? No, okay. So spidergrams are a useful way of gathering together your ideas when answering a question. So this is an example. A spidergram is a planning tool that helps you to group information and ideas, so you have a rough outline of how you want to answer to look and how you want it, what you want it to contain before you start writing. An example of spidergram is there. So you would have the question in the middle, okay, and then you would branch out what kind of things you need to put in it. So if you need to put case examples, if you need to put examples of anything, you would branch out, and it's an easier way to identify what you want to do. Okay, and also looks at what you want to include in your assignment. So some people like mind maps, some people like spidergrams, but you know, it's there for the reader to look at brainstorming something visually, and you know, to organize concepts in their head logically. And the spidergrams are, you could put anything in there and you could use that towards doing your assignment before you start. So it's a way of planning. So 2.2, use the plan to write a coherent and logical response to a specific question. So describe the possible implications. So this is an example. A diagnosis of hypertension would have a patient attending their surgery. So you would look at that. You in the middle, this is a spidergram. You would your question would be in the middle. Yes, everyone is, do you understand?
Yeah.
And then you would just branch out. So in the introduction, you could say, I'm going to put this information. In the main body, you could say, I'm going to put this information. And then in the conclusion, you're going to provide an answer without repeating yourself from the introduction. And then your reference list. So this is how an assignment needs to be structured. Introduction, main body, conclusion, and then reference list. And this will help you. So for you, you will know what you want to put in. So when we looked at in the last session, breaking down command words, you will break down the question and look at it from that perspective. 2.3. Present the response in an appropriate format. So bearing these conventions in mind, we can now create a plan for our work. We'll use the example question from section 1, which is describe the possible implications a diagnosis of hypertension would have on a patient attending their GP surgery. So this is just an example for you, okay? In the introduction, here we set the scene. So would you you'd explain the term hypertension. Why do you think that's important? If you're looking at that question, why do you think it's important to explain what hypertension is? Why do you think it's so important at the start to explain what hypertension is? Anyone?
I don't have an idea.
So if you're looking at that question, Claude, yeah, describe the possible implications a diagnosis of hypertension would have on a patient attending their GP surgery. So if you're doing an introduction, in the introduction, you need to explain what hypertension is, because the reader doesn't understand. Okay, so if the reader doesn't understand, you need to make the reader understand. So you will define, you will explain what hypertension is. You will explain the incidence of hypertension in the UK. You will look at how many GPs are treated for hypertension in the UK by their GPs. You will explain what the treatment for hypertension can entail, and you'll explain what long-term implications of non-treatment are. You will then go to the main body. So this is a sample question, okay?
Okay.
Just giving you an example of how you do it. Here we'll go over the possible impact this diagnosis could have on the patient. So positive versus negative. So advantages and disadvantages. So the positive one that you'd look at in the main body is that it allows patients to have a diagnosis and have the reassurance of being treated. Positive is also that it allows the GP to explain the implications for the patient and rely on any inaccurate assumptions. And the negative effects are the depression, at the diagnosis of a chronic disease, effects on the individual versus effects on the patient. So you'd look at the wider family, social circle, impact on the family life, changes in smoking, eating, drinking habits, worry for the rest of the family, and need to take regular lifelong medications and start exercise programs with the family. So this is a lot. This is the main body, what you'd answer the question in. Then you'd have the conclusion. Here you would summarize the preceding paragraphs and give your opinion about whether this would be a positive or negative experience, and even give suggestions about how the patient experience could be improved with examples. Then you would have your reference list, which is using the Harvard system for referencing. It is very important that the work of others that you use in your referencing is not directly copied and passed off as your own. This is called plagiarism and is not acceptable. So you need to reference your work. If you take something out of a book, you need to make sure you reference it, because it's not your work, is it? It's someone else's work.
Yes.
Okay. So you need to make sure you reference everything, because otherwise you will be plagiarizing someone's work. Okay. It's important to use the Harvard referencing and reference your work. So these are some of the references we've used in today's sessions, okay? And they identify, you know, what sources we've used, but also, you know, like when you're doing Spidergrams, try to sit down when we come to your assignment area. After that session, sit down, do a Spidergram and identify what you need to do in each task. And it will help you come up with more ideas. It will help you how to answer the question. It will help you to be clear and courteous and correct. It will help you to identify them issues. So these are the resources. Also, please use Moodle. Okay, Moodle has additional resources on there for you. Read the activities on page 15 and 19 on Moodle. Academic writing, really good sources on bbc.co.uk, and writing and planning your work. Any sort of questions or anything, you could ask me, or questions are sent to learnerwork@ukvarsity.co.uk, and submission of your assignment is to be done at learnerworks@ukvarsity.co.uk, and that's after 2 weeks of completion of the unit and its delivery. So we've got another, next week we've got another sessions, okay, 2 sessions, and then after that you can get on with your assignment. Has anyone got any questions?
Yes, please. I have 2 questions.
Okay.
Yeah, it's Claude. Yeah.
Hi, Claudia.
Yeah. The first question is to ask if I can have access to read the summary what we did from yesterday and today. Just if I can get the website, I can read everything for. If I want to.
It's on Moodle. Have you got access to Moodle?
Yes.
All your work is on Moodle. Also, the video, the recordings that I'm doing today, they will be on Moodle as well.
Okay, I will try to get it.
So you will have
Moodle.
access to them.
Yeah, I will
Sorry?
try. Yeah, I will try.
Get onto Moodle. Moodle is very good for any sort of additional reading or any sort of additional resources. And that's your main tool that you need to be using.
Okay, that's fine. Second question. Second question. I've been struggling with about to get the link on time. I don't know. So maybe next week I will get it on time, because
the sessions have been booked for 9 o'clock.
Okay, the link, the Zoom link, we get confusion about the Zoom link.
Yes, today.
Oh, the Zoom link. Haven't you got the Zoom link?
I didn't. I've been waiting for the WhatsApp group.
Okay, so what I'll do, Claude, is it just Claude that? Claude, have you just got the issues with the Zoom link?
Sorry?
Have you just got the issues? Because I can email them and tell them to send you the link. Has anyone else got any issues with the link?
Yes, today is me, Sita.
Yeah.
What's your name, sorry?
Chika.
How do you spell it?
CHIKA.
Chikh. Okay.
A
Tika,
IKA.
okay.
Not H.
Okay, I will tell the person who deals with all the Zoom meetings and tell them to resend it out to you, okay?
Okay,
Yeah, it should be
because
please, it should be fine. Yeah.
yeah.
We came
That will
by,
be
we
for
came late.
that. I'll tell them. I'll email them Claude now, and then what happens is I'll get them to send them out on Monday tomorrow for you, okay? For next week, okay? Because our
that's
next session is on Saturday and Sunday at 9 o'clock, okay?
Yeah, that
Alright.
should be fine. Yes, please.
Because today we
Okay.
are late.
Has anyone got any other questions? Has anyone got any other questions? No.
No.
Okay, thank you for
no.
attending. Thank you for attending today's session. And please go
Yes.
on to Moodle. And I will see you next week for learning outcome 3. Okay?
Yes, please. Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a
Bye.
nice week, everybody.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
you. Bye.
Nice week.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah,